Hi, it's Andrew at Front Range CNC. Today we want to show you what a carousel style tool changer is. The most common style you'll see in CNC routers, I'd say there's one of three. One is going to be a linear rack in the back or a fixed rack in the back. The other will be a rack that rides underneath the bridge and that comes out. And I'd say the third is typically a carousel style. Different brands do these all a little bit differently, but for the most part, they fall into one of those three spots in terms of location. The benefit of a tool rack in the back is that it's very simple. It's easy to realign. The disadvantage is it's typically slower. The machine, if it's cutting in the front, now needs to go all the way to the back, then come back to where it was cutting to continue. The other style is a rack that is underneath the bridge. This typically can do well because it's able to move with the machine. So all that's got to be done is your machine or spindle's got to line up with the X. The rack comes out, changes the tool, and then you continue moving. That is typically fairly fast. The only disadvantage is you typically lose a bit of height, and you have a tendency to have that rack come out a little bit not straight over time. This is something you see after a long period of time, and it would depend on how they've got the solenoids routed and how that weight's distributed, but something to keep in mind. The third method is a carousel. This is popular, and I would say, depending on how old your machine is, you might have actually a carousel that's running off of stepper motors. You typically see new machines with a servo motor setup, but if older machines, if someone wanted to retrofit and add that and their controller was out of potential axes they can control, they would just do a stepper setup. And at that point, it would just rotate X amount of degrees, and it would not necessarily have feedback, but that was a popular way you saw it done. The advantage of a carousel, typically it still gives you height under the bridge, and it rides with the machine. So it's, I would say in some ways, a bit of a combination of the rack underneath, while still leaving the back clear and so on. This is a common style for us if someone wants to do loading and unloading in the future, because especially when it comes to loading, if we have a hydraulic table at the back of the machine, now it's completely clear. So now we've got the ability for the machine to go back, because remember, people can add that at a later time. So if they want to grow with their machine, they can simply spec the machine like this with the carousel to start, and they're then able to add a loading table later. Keep in mind, if you do have a carousel, and this is true of most machines, you will add another 1 to 2 feet of overall width. So the other thing you'd have to consider is, what is the geometry of your shop? Where are you going to put the machine? And that's something you'd want to also consider when you make the decision as to which style might be right for you. And I would encourage you to talk with manufacturers as you're looking, and we are always happy to kind of point you in the right direction based on what it sounds like you're wanting to do.